Hey, good morning, guys. I'm the Tech Prepper. This episode is going to go back to our prepper roots from the channel. And the reason why I want to do it is that all of the projects that I'm working on right now are geared towards being completed for a very specific milestone. And I have some concerns, like most of the prepper community, around what November looks like. And for those of you outside of the US, this is the election cycle for us. And given that we've seen that society as a whole is capable of rioting and social disorder, depending on what transpires during the election and where we are with the coronavirus, there could be a real serious lockdown again that we haven't seen. And maybe what we've seen so far is just like a training run, if you will. So, personally, what I want to be able to do is take a look at being able to put myself on really full lockdown along with my family during that month of November. So there are some short-term items I need to work on, some mid-term items, and some long-term items. And I've broken them down into 10 buckets. So what does our plan look like? So the first item on the plan we've already executed on, and that was to get out of the city. I know this is a big one, but for us, we have seen tremendous gains in being able to relax by virtue of being in an area where we have a very small population. We're less than 14,000 people in our city. And then everybody here is on 1 to 5+ acres. So if we don't want to see anybody, we don't have to see anybody. It's the perfect place to be. So number one, get out of the city. That's just my opinion, something I've done. And over the last 3 months, it has turned out to be a really great investment. Number two is water. And I want to break up most of these buckets again into those three: short-term, mid-term, long-term. So short-term, I want to make sure that, if there is an incident and there is rioting, I want to have time to let that pass before there's some control over that situation. And that could be 1 day to 2 weeks, I don't know. So I want to have enough water on hand. So every time we go to the supermarket now, we're buying an extra case of water. One to stock, one to consume. And again, I know that requires a little bit of money, but you need water to survive, so why not stock? And that'll get you through the short term. For us personally, we are on a well, and we have a holding tank. So we'll look at the holding tank first. So we want to get ourselves in the mindset of conservation. So deciding when to do our dishes, the approach that we use to do our dishes, basically clogging the sink and filling up a little bit of a basin and kind of washing everything there the same way we would when we're camping. And then, I know this is probably going a bit overboard, but hold on a second, guys. This may be going a bit overboard. But even not flushing the toilets, when it's liquids, 3 gallons per flush is, taking away from our 3,000-gallon holding tank. Outside of that, we do have the well, and it does dry up from time to time, but it does require one thing, and it requires an electric pump. So one of the long-term items I'm looking at is investing in a renewable energy approach that can run the pump. So I've got a solar project lined up that will be able to top off the batteries and also run, or will top off the batteries and then provide an inverter with sufficient power to drive the motor on the pump. So, and then of course, there's also, water reclamation, so we can turn off the pool water, and we're looking at potentially getting one of the Berkey filters And I had done research, I think, a couple of years ago, and the Berkey, to my knowledge, can also filter out chlorinated water, even if it's harder on the filters themselves. So, short term is stocking up on water slowly over the next 3 months. Midterm is taking a look at the ability for us to start to ration and conserve. And then third is to have sustainable, renewable energy to drive our well pump. And then obviously also learning how to maintain that equipment so I don't have to rely on somebody else. So skills acquisition, building up skills knowledge base is going to run through all of the themes. Did I talk about water purification? So we've also got the inline filters too, outside of the Berkey. So the Sawyer filters. Again, that's very long term. I just need to get over the hump and hunker down, but we've got that in our plan. Food. So food's the same thing. So midterm is every time we go out, we're stocking up on one extra item. So if we're buying, the large peanut butter, we'll buy two, stock one away. Same thing with nuts. So the non-perishable items that store well, we're stocking up a little bit of that at a time. The long-term plan is the garden that we are starting to work on. We've got a small greenhouse. There'll be a project on that, another video. And then also the chicken coop. So in the fall, we're going to start building the chicken coop. It'll take us some time for, egg production, but between some veggies, the protein we'll get from the eggs, and then also I did a video on foraging. Foraging is something that is least on my list, but we can also supplement our diet with some of the wild plant life here. But I personally hate the nopales, the cactus pads. They are absolutely terrible. My hands are finally recovering from processing the last time I went through that exercise. So we've got leaving the city, water, food. Number 4 is exercise. So when I was living back in California, I was going to the gym every day during lunch or after work for a solid hour. I was running 3 to 5 miles Monday through Friday and doing strength training. And then on the weekends, I would do a long run. Since I've moved back here in the last 3 months, I've gained about 10 or 12 pounds. So I need to be healthy so that I can support all of these initiatives. So I'm going to get back into that training. It doesn't matter how hot it is out here. I'm going to get back on my 3 to 5 miles per day starting today. It's just I need to drop the weight and just get in shape. Along with that goes diet. I also want to fully wean myself off of all the sugars just for health reasons, so I don't have to go to the doctor for any health related issues. And also, I'll just be healthier, leaner, feel better, both mentally and physically. Number 5 is the grid. And as I had mentioned before, I do need to stay on the grid for some things like running the water pump. The other area we need to be able to support an outage on the electrical grid is for our refrigeration system. So we do want to be able to not have we don't want to have our meat spoil in the freezer, for example. So part of the solar system I am building, again, the inverter will be able to run the water pump and the refrigerator. The other area of the grid that's interesting is I actually have the short-term, mid-term, and long-term projects. So I've been experimenting with a little bit of solar here and there. The project that will be coming up very quickly on this channel is what I'm calling my mini solar power station. And it consists of a very small 12-volt battery, a small inverter, a small fuse block, and a briefcase-style 60-watt solar panel. And the intent there is that I can recharge all of my small devices. I can run some of the bigger AC devices if needed. It is portable. I'm primarily using it for my ham radio operations, but it's a very nice thing to throw in the RV, throw in the Jeep, and is very lightweight and easy to carry around. The second solar project will be for the RV, because again, this gives us the ability to boondock on our own property if the grid goes down. So the ability for us to already have our refrigeration in the RV, our air conditioning, all of that will be a tremendous success. And then the longer term project is not a full solar system for the house, but one that again is very capable of running at least the water pump for the well and the refrigerator. So I'm thinking of either a 24 or a 48 volt system, and starting by scaling the components high to begin with in terms of the core components like the solar charge controller and the inverter, and then build out the battery bank and the solar array over time. So the electrical grid, I think, will largely be solved by November. Number 6 is communication. As most of you know, I have. Oh, sorry. Along with a lot of this, guys, I have lots of reading material. So Will Pros has got a great channel on YouTube. I've been following him for a couple years. I've been using his videos to help with some of my solar projects. I just picked up his book on solar made easy, and again, having a small print library in your house with this type of information is absolutely critical if for some reason we can't get online. So the books are absolutely key. So getting back to communication, I've been studying for my general exam, probably for too long. I am absolutely ready to pass that. I just need to figure out what remote testing facility or what coronavirus friendly exam facility is available in my area. And the reason for this is I don't want to get my news from the media anymore if there is a major issue. I'd prefer to get it from local hams in the area and communicate that way. Also, I have no dependency on any kind of infrastructure, short of like an EM, electromagnetic blast. I can basically talk freely over the air on just about anything from 20 centimeters all the way down to the very low HF bands. So communication's key. The other thing I'm going to do is, while I'm pretty well stocked on my handy talkies, my handheld radios, I only have one low power QRP HF radio. It's the Yaesu 818ND. I want to go have a radio that has more power, probably around 100 watts. So as soon as I pass my general in September, I'm going to give myself a birthday gift of a more powerful HF antenna or HF radio, and then also a nice fiberglass mast, since we are in the desert and it's very difficult to string up any type of antenna in the trees. They're just not high enough, or the trees just aren't available. And then probably getting a really nice high end-fed multi-band antenna. So communications I've covered, and again, the skills are very important there. I've been practicing for a while, so I don't really have to think about how communications are going to work if I do in fact need them. Number 7 is first aid. We've been prepping the kits very slowly over the last 5 years, so I've got a first aid kit ranging from a boo-boo kit to a trauma kit just about in every car, in the house, on my person, you name it, and then the skills along to treat any issue for the most part. And I did talk about this book in a video, one of my early videos, the Survival Medicine Handbook. This is absolutely amazing. Again, this is a print book. I'm reading probably, a section or two every few days, just to make sure I understand this. Where applicable and I'm able to, and there's a need to, I am practicing some of the techniques in this book. And then I think in that same video I also talked about, I did purchase some time ago about 4 or 5 different types of fish antibiotics and a 2003 or 2005 PDR for being able to identify pills, the type of symptoms you have, and how to properly prescribe and self-medicate. I don't recommend this to anybody, but it's something that if I need to in a pinch and it gets critical, I probably will go down that route of trying to self-prescribe antibiotics for myself if needed. So that's first aid. Community is the next one. So I've been neglecting this one for a while. So we live in a very good community. We have a lot of like social gatherings. So I want to start having a dialogue or some level of communication and gauge interest in, you know, how the community feels about getting together if an event happens. And this could be not an earthquake. We're not in an area where there's an earthquake, but any type of crisis that would impact your area, what the community's thoughts are in getting together and having a plan around communications, food, water, shelter, security, all of that stuff. So I'll probably do a video on that much later. I do need to feel that one out a bit. And then number 9 for me is security. I'm not going to go into this one, but I do have a plan for personal protection, home protection, vehicle protection. My wife and I do have training. So I'll leave that to the other channels. I don't want to get into it here, but the ability to protect yourself, I believe, is key. And then number 10 is skills acquisition and building out your knowledge base. So everything I've talked about here, you need to have the skills and the understanding and the training first before you need it. I'm a big fan of reading lots of books. The latest one I'm reading right now is on survival in the Southwest. It's not really well written grammatically, but there are some gems in here. A lot of the stuff is more like wilderness survival, but it gets you thinking into how you can address certain survival situations, which I think is important. Along the skills too, I'll note, since I left the city, I've become infinitely more handy. I typically was the kind of person who thought I was so busy with my work, being an engineer, that I had to pay someone to do everything for me. And for you guys who have been following along, I did the RV upgrade end to end, all of the electrical work, all the battery upgrades. And I'm finding, one, it's saving me a crap ton of money. And I know how every system works. So I am now trying to do everything on my own, like the system for the house, for the solar. I'm not going to bring in anybody to put that in. That's something that I'm going to work on myself. So if you were like me or are like me, and you are from the city, get out of the city, start to think about prepping, start to build your skill sets. I'm hoping this video didn't come off as too much of a ramble, but I just thought it had to be made. I believe there's a very small window where we still have the ability to go out, get goods, and build our knowledge base in advance. And my personal opinion is, if you can really hunker down without having to leave for a 3-week window, you're probably in good shape. And then if you have already trained yourself with the mindset, what if you have to stretch out to 6 months and have thought about a plan, you're probably going to be okay. All right, guys, be strong, be safe, and be prepared.